When I was younger, I used to be very nervous, and I remember going to parties when I was a teenager. I would be feel very shaky, nervous to go and attend those parties, worried what people would think of me, and I used to have a lot of anxiety about interacting with people, even in day to day situations, going to work, going to school, and had a lot of stress at that time. Admittedly, my mental health wasn't as good, but I wanted to share some of the changes I've made and looking back in hindsight, the things that have helped me. So you can hopefully save some time and trials and tribulations in terms of anxiety, social anxiety, and move towards having better interactions. And yeah, probably compared to about 6 years ago, I've experienced a lot of change. So this was me singing Oasis very badly to I don't know how many people there, over 30 at least. Um, I will share a little bit of it. I don't want to hurt your ears too much, but here goes to prove that I did it. And yeah, it was my first time singing live, first time doing anything like that, and it made me very nervous still, but it just showed to me that I've changed a lot and made a lot of progress. And yeah, I'm going to share sort of the five things that have really helped me to make that change. So one of the first thing is it's a bit of a combination of things. The first is having a long term focus. So we're likely here for a while. Obviously, that's not not guaranteed, but that's what we'd hope. And I think with when you're working on your social confidence, it's about planning to succeed in 5 to 10 years time, and that's kind of what I've had. And it's not necessarily about succeeding today. If you're very nervous socially and very socially anxious, awkward, you're not going to switch that, flick a switch, have a magic pill that's suddenly going to transform that. You just have to accept that. And the best thing about that, and why this is a good mindset, is it takes all that pressure off. You don't need to go into a party and suddenly start being the life and soul and impressing everyone. You have sort of a long term plan in mind, and you will just slowly progress things and have sort of a growth mindset. Put yourselves in those situations over and over and over again that are going to slightly push you outside of your comfort zone. And if you think like that, you, as I say, it takes off that pressure, but that is what is going to succeed. It's not going out and you'll see these guides online where it's like you need to go and talk to 20 people today. It's just going to stress you out, to be honest. And then you'll see 20 people in a day and you think, oh, God, that was horrible, really uncomfortable, way beyond anything I'm comfortable with or have ever done before, and it's not really going to help you. So try to plan to succeed in 5 to 10 years time. Set sort of a goal, and even that goal can be something as simple as every day I will try and do something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable socially. And by doing that, you just build yourself up over time. You build that confidence, and yeah, knowing it's not going to be comfortable either, but having that long term focus makes a big difference. Takes that pressure off. The other thing is also you want a short term focus as well. That we're not here forever, and for me, I recognised that the way I was living, where I felt nervous to approach people, nervous to talk to new people, nervous on calls at work, that sort of thing, that that wasn't working for me. And part of it for me as well was just getting healthier habits, which helps a lot because you're sort of less stressed out. You're a calmer person. Doing stuff like meditation is very helpful. But also, this is more talking about the mindset. So saying that I'm not here for a long time, it gives a sense of urgency, because if you run it out over a long enough period and you never sort of make the change, it is always a consistent experience, then you're not really going to get the results you want. And you need to ask yourself these questions, because it could be that you have a lot of close friends, but you are socially anxious. Do you want that to continue, or do you want to change that? And the answer's up to you. Like I can never tell you the answer, but what sort of life do you want to live? How do you want to feel about yourself on your deathbed? For me, I didn't want to be that person who was sort of very shy, socially anxious, awkward to talk to, which I used to be, and I now feel like I'm someone who anyone can kind of have a conversation with, try to make people feel comfortable, and I feel I can now do that. But I think part of it was I was always quite quiet as a child, and people around me always said you're shy, so it became sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So for me, it was being careful as well about how I speak to myself, but also reflecting on what sort of life I want. And I didn't want a life where I was constrained by sort of the feelings I have in my body, which is the anxiety where you feel uncomfortable socially. I didn't want to be constrained by that, and thinking about your long term plan, what you really want from your life, will help with that as well. A big thing for me, I used to, particularly thinking about these parties, bearing in mind that I was really nervous, sort of shaking, sweaty, uncomfortable, sort of that flight or fight response. I was still going there in my head thinking, as my dream state, my goal in that situation was really impressing everyone, being the life and soul of the party, making people laugh. And that pressure to perform when you already feel a lot of stress in that situation is a bit of a nightmare. It's not. It didn't help me certainly, and I think just dropping that need to sort of impress people is something that really helped. And just going into those situations and doing things, sort of taking action in terms of just being happy with being there. That's a progress in itself, rather than comparing myself to maybe the most social person who's really confident, makes everyone laugh. Why would I do that? I need to go back to sort of what I was just talking about, the long term plan. I need to look at my long term plan, 5 to 10 years. Where am I now, and where do I want to get to? There's no point comparing my experience to other people. So try and drop that if that's something you experience, because I don't think having that added strain of trying to put on a good image or make people like you, those were things that had a very negative impact for me, because you ultimately can't control that. What you can do have more control over is turning up in that situation, walking to the party, showing your face, just being there. That's probably if this video resonates with you, that's probably difficult enough, and it was for me as well. So yeah, lower the pressure. You can't control people's reactions, so try not to have that as your focus of whether you're being socially successful, because yeah, we can't control that. So just try and forget about that, especially if it's early stages in terms of working on improving your social confidence. Yeah, as I say, just do less. Focus on the actions you control, and again, you don't need to be the life and soul of the party. Maybe in 20 years you can be, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, but don't worry about that for now. This is a really big one for me. So questioning your thoughts. So I would used to tell myself that I think my self esteem was a lot lower at the time. I would say I thought I was boring. It was a time at the time I lost a few close friends and sort of drifted apart from them, and that definitely affected me a lot. And I sort of had this stage where I believed I was boring, and it was one particular incident where I had a friends group who, on hindsight, weren't good friends, because I would speak and they would speak over me, and from that I internalized this belief of you're boring, you're not interesting, sort of no one wants to talk to you, and inevitably when I'm then talking, it's very obvious that in that situation I wouldn't feel comfortable, I wouldn't believe in what I have to say. So what you want to do pre, during, and post social interactions, and this is kind of what helped me in hindsight, is actually, this was more just at the time I reflected on my thoughts, but I think journaling would go a step deeper in terms of recognizing what your limiting beliefs are that are coming up in social interactions. So it could be stuff like, you want to ask, what does your subconscious tell yourself, and think about how this might create tension. It is more just recognizing what your subconscious is telling you, or even your conscious mind, and reflecting on the truth of that. So a statement for me was, "You're boring. I'm boring." So I just questioned that to a point that I didn't believe it anymore, and also that's been helped by developing a life I'm really happy with and proud of. So that sort of helped me answer that negative belief. But also that's not factually true. In life, someone might find me boring, someone might find me the most interesting person in the world. And again, I can't control that, and nothing's fixed. So any belief we tell ourselves, it's not the truth. There's no absolute truth. On one day I might be boring, on one day I might be the most interesting person in the world. Um, but it's just about questioning those thoughts, because they're probably going on very, very below the surface, and sort of running on autopilot and really influencing how you feel about yourself. So I think it's really important to just do this when you're looking to improve your social confidence. Trying to think of another example. Um, it could be something similar, that people don't enjoy speaking to me, or they're looking at me weirdly. Um, Again, it's just questioning that, and that is an automatic thought, but is it really true? And just ask yourself, is it true? How do I know that's true for sure? And just trying to let go of it. I got asked this question the other day by someone I'm coaching. They said, "Do you still have what happens when that thought of, for me, I'm boring? What happens when that goes?" And it's just you kind of let that go, and it's sort of more clarity there. There's not a negative thought. There doesn't necessarily need to be a positive thought. You're just a lot more present and not thinking about what other people think of you. Which goes to my next point, which is focus on the other person. If our focus is 100% internal, we're having a lot of sort of thoughts that have rumination, and they're not helpful, they're negative thoughts, then we will inevitably feel stressed, we'll feel uncomfortable, we'll feel anxious. Instead, try and focus on the other person. Actually ask yourself, do you like, if you're at a party, do you like the person you're speaking to? Do you enjoy their company? Because I think if you're in a state where you do feel socially anxious, your focus is so much on yourself and how you're perceived, and I need to impress other people. But do you like this? Do you like the person you're talking to? Do you enjoy their company? And that's just a subtle thing you can do to change the focus, and for you as an individual, it's going to improve your social relationships, because you'll start spending more time with people who make you feel good, as well as, do you like them? Do they make you feel good? Do they treat you well? These questions can really help and sort of have that positive long-term impact, where we're building relationship with people who actually make us feel positive, who make us sort of enjoy their company. So try and focus on the other person. That for me helped a lot, rather than just everything I've kind of talked about, and the beliefs that have limited me have all been focused internally, and trying to live up to expectations that I set for myself, trying to put on a good image for other people, but focus on the other person, what they're saying, what they're talking about. Try and listen carefully, because if you're doing that, it's very difficult to also have negative thoughts and see if you actually like them. It's pretty good to ask yourself that question to build long-term friendships as well, which is going to, when you have those solid friendships, that's going to improve your social confidence. The other thing is, discomfort never really stops. So even for me, like 5 years down the line, it's still uncomfortable to go up to a new person. It's still uncomfortable to even sometimes go up to someone in a shop, ask a question. It's obviously relatively now, it feels a lot easier compared to how it might have done, but it's still uncomfortable. It's not the easy thing. The easy thing is probably hiding away from the world and staying inside. But again, we got to think back to, well, for me, I like to think back to my, however long the plan is, my 20-year plan. Do I want to be that person who stays inside and hides from the world, or do I want to go out there and feel some discomfort but have positive interactions with people, meet interesting people? So the discomfort never stops. And when we have in mind, or when I have in mind that there's a long-term plan, it really helps me, because I recognize that I'm aiming for something bigger, and that allows me to move past the discomfort. So our job to continually develop our social confidence is to step into discomfort day after day, whatever it is. So if you're, let's go into this, if you can't speak to that person, so say your goal is, I want to go and speak to a new person today, that would be amazing, that will help my social confidence. If it's actually too uncomfortable, what you might be tempted to do, because I've had this in the past, is to just say, no, I'm not going to speak to them, I'll push that back to tomorrow. But can you smile at them instead? If you're wanting to talk to an attractive girl, rather than that, because that might be something that's very uncomfortable, can you go and talk to the old lady behind the till or something in the shop, and ask her how her day's been? So just by lowering that pressure, that will help. So you're still moving forwards and just thinking, what can I do in this moment that is going to challenge me, it's going to help me grow? Obviously, if you can do stuff that is more challenging and really moves things along in terms of your confidence, then that's fantastic. But it's not one or the other. So it's not like my goal is I want to go and speak to that person, I have to, as an alternative, just stay inside. No, you can smile at them, you can do something else, you can go and talk to someone else who might seem more friendly to speak to. So it's just our job to step into this discomfort, and that's the only way that our social confidence will improve. So it's just a truth we have to face up to, and we need to make it worthwhile and valuable for us to do that. And that all starts with sort of the long-term planning and thinking, what do I want to do with this one life I have? How do I want to interact with the world? And yeah, as I say, take off the pressure. If you can't do the higher risk activity, do something that's lower risk that still challenges yourself on that day, and that will keep you moving in the right direction and growing your social confidence. So yeah, conclusion, I would say it's about consistent. For me, this is what has helped. It's having consistent work over time. You don't need to call it work, that's probably a bit of an unnecessary phrase, but consistently putting yourself out there. Yeah, the discomfort never goes away. You want to play sort of a long-term game, but also, as I talked about, have that short-term focus in terms of life won't last forever. So there's a sense of urgency there, and put less pressure on yourself as well. You're probably putting on some pressure to live up to society's expectations, or be like celebrities or people you see in your circle who have a lot of confidence. Just stay in your own lane, focus on where you are. That's the only way you're really going to make progress. And if I can go from someone who was very nervous to go to parties, nervous to talk to new people, nervous to talk to cashiers, and then I can go to singing a pretty poor version of Supersonic by Oasis, then I'm hoping that gives you some hope. I hope that the points I've run through here have been useful, and yeah, drop me a message or anything if you have any questions about that. But otherwise, hope that video has been useful. Thank you.